to see you. Hey,
Dave, happy birthday. How are you?
I'm doing well. Hey, Jonathan. Wow, good to see you. Long time no see, sir. I hope you're enjoying Zoom University.
Yeah. Happy birthday, Dave.
Thanks, Vasantha. Great to see you. Oh,
Hey, hi, Dave. Happy birthday.
thank you very much. Appreciate it. Nick, thanks to you and your boss for joining us.
Sure, I'm taking some notes from him. We're celebrating your 30th birthday. Is that right? I'll let him know.
Sadly, at this age, you just get old, right? Let's see. I got Ford and Mari. Great to see you both. Thank you again. Larry, good to see you, sir. Council
Good to
member, I
see
should
you.
say.
Happy birthday.
Thank you. Kim, again, good to see you. Lynn, Rack, good to see you.
Hi, happy birthday, Dave.
Thank you. Thanks for joining us today. Really appreciate it. And Steve
Absolutely.
Hicklin, I know there's probably a few Steves. Great to see you.
Nice to you.
And is that Jesus under Democrats of Greater Irvine?
Oh, that's
Good to see you.
Kev.
That's me.
Oh, it's Kev. I'm sorry. My eyes are going bad, and you're like tiny. And you had sort of the wild hair, like
Yeah,
Sorry.
it's COVID hair.
not wild hair, very attractive hair.
Welcome to
Sharon,
45,
good to see you. Oh, hey, Steven.
Hi, Dave.
Hey, Steve. Sharon Brooks, good to see you.
Happy
Louise
birthday.
Adler. Great to see you. I saw Judy Kaufman just pop up on my screen. Good to see you, Judy.
Hi.
I've got Mayor Khan. Great to see you, Farah. How you
Happy
doing?
birthday. Good to see
Thank you
you.
for joining us. Yeah, appreciate it. Andrew Tonkovich. Oh, well, you got COVID hair. That's great, man.
And proud of it. I call it Rip Van COVID.
Oh, it's great. And you look like one of the '90s grunge stars I had up in my posters back in the day.
Happy birthday, Dave.
Thank you, appreciate it. Mike Fong,
Happy
man around town. Good to see you, sir.
Is it your birthday? Is it today?
It is today, in fact.
Oh, well, Minnie, can we sing you the song, or is that
Oh, I
coming later?
I do have a cupcake here, so. And Jan and I are gonna have a little dinner later. Yeah, here's Shannon. He wants to say hello.
So good to see you.
Miss you.
I miss you so much. Yeah.
Oh, hey, Brad. Hey, David. Good to see you both.
Happy birthday.
Happy birthday.
Thank you very much. I got Jonathan Yang. Good to see you, Jonathan. Long time no see. Hope you're doing well.
Happy birthday.
Thank you much. We got to catch up sometime with everybody. Patricia Smith, good to see you. Trevor, good to see you. Bonnie, was that?
Oh, happy birthday.
Thank you for dropping by. Yeah, appreciate it. Thanks for everything. And Bonnie Robinson,
Hi, Dave. Happy birthday.
thank you. Great to see you. I just saw a thank you note from your mom from like way back when.
Oh, my
I haven't
goodness.
seen you in a while.
That's the Rowena's friend.
Yeah. Rick and Brock and Jill Nelke, good to see you both. Thanks for coming by. And Felicity, good to see you again. Is that John DeShong? And
Yeah. Hi,
Fran on
Dave.
a
Fran
separate
will be on a little later.
Oh, great. Good to see you.
Are we going to sing you the song at some point? Because if not, I say we do it now.
I have no idea what our itinerary is.
Okay.
I'm
Who's up
just
for
saying hello
singing?
to people because I haven't seen a lot of you in a while, and it really is great, even though it's Zoom.
I say we should
it
sing.
doesn't work to sing on Zoom.
It doesn't matter. It's the thought that
It's
counts.
just a bit.
Well,
So
you
one.
have to lead, Felicity.
Okay, 1, 2, 3. Happy
birthday
birthday to
you.
Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday.
See how it's going?
Happy birthday to you.
Wow.
Asking if we're playing
That kinda
music.
works.
Yes, we are.
You guys guys are the opposite of the state senate where they rush through everything. So I had to learn a couple days in that like the Pledge of Allegiance, which I like normally you have time to breathe. And you can pause a certain like they just rush through it. And it's so Josh Newman, who may be on the call or will be joining us at the shortly. He sits like right behind me, and I can hear him kind of rushing through it, like you know. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic for which it stands. It's pretty wild up there. But thank you all for joining us today. And let me see. I think I've got an itinerary, but I think we got a few minutes still. So maybe I can just say hello to a few more folks. The thing is, you guys pop up in different orders. But I was saying hello to Patricia Smith. Good to see you. Hey,
I have
Patricia.
a martini for you.
Oh, good for
From
you.
Manhattan.
Oh, lovely.
That looks delicious. We got some for dinner tonight. Part of what we're getting is some cocktails. It's a very bougie place in Sacramento, but I haven't had a like bar cocktail in over a year now. So
You're rich. You have a designated driver?
well, we're doing takeout, so you know we're not going out. But Glenna, great to see you. You're looking
Wonderful to be here.
Oh.
And Mr. Avinder Chawla, great to see you, sir.
Happy day, happy birthday.
Thank you very much. Long time no see.
Yeah.
Avinder's daughters both worked on her campaign, so much appreciate. You've got some great ones.
Yeah, thank you.
And let's see, I've got Marianne Guido.
Hi, Dave. Happy birthday.
Thank you. Good to see you, Marianne. Oh, I'm sorry, Ellen. Larry, good to see you both. Was that you singing on cue or on pitch? They're good singers. Great to see you both. Thank you for joining. And then, yeah, Arnell, I've got you here. Oh, Maureen. Good to see you, Maureen.
Hello.
Thank you for joining us. And I've got a bunch of people that are off camera, but, you know, thank you all for joining us. And, you know, I was just thinking about it. And first of all, thank you to Mayor Khan and council member. Oh, and I see Lyle Gregory. I'm sorry, my screen jumped around a little bit. Great to see you, Lyle. Long time no see.
You're exactly at 45 participants in honor of your 45th birthday.
That's great.
Don't let anyone else in.
Yeah, and then Eileen, good to see you.
Thank you. Happy birthday, Dave.
And I just want to say thank you to Mayor Khan and Councilmember Agron for joining us from the Irvine elected crew. Great to have you both, and great to have a Democratic majority. And I know you've already done some great stuff on, you know, the rise of hate and a lot of other important issues. And so really grateful for your leadership in this regard. And I was just thinking it was like a year and 2 days ago. So March 3rd was a couple days ago, and that was my last in-person event, because that was our primary election night party, if you remember. And things were getting a little dicey then. The news was like getting a little dire, but I didn't think we'd be through a year of this. So thank you all for spending a little bit of your Zoom time with us. I know we're all Zoomed out, and you know, I think we're close to, you know, hopefully getting back to normal. I know things are on the, you know, upswing here, and I just wanted to thank you all, and I'm glad that you all look healthy. You know, you all have resources, a roof over your head, and the ability to Zoom, and that's, you know, not everybody's been this fortunate, but I'm really grateful to y'all, and thank you. What a year we've had, right? In a lot of ways, and we had a very, you know, important election, you know, that, you know, for me personally was a big one, but then also for the country was just so important. And then for the city of Irvine, it was critical to see some, you know, some historic changes with Farah and Tammy becoming, you know, elected with historic margins, but also breaking barriers as far as, you know, what they represented. Mayor Khan, I think, is the only Muslim American woman who's mayor of elected city. She may or may not correct me if I'm wrong on that point. And Tammy Kim, you know, was I think the first Korean American city council member, woman, I should say. And there, you know, Larry, of course, coming back was a big deal, and that's very important as well. And, we now have, for the first time in a while, I think since Citizens United, a Democratic majority on the Irvine City Council. We've got a lot of great things happening in Orange County. Among them is my good friend Tom Humberg, who's been showing me the ropes here in Sacramento. And so Tom, who like myself is kind of outranked by his wife, his outranking is more formal than mine. But Senator Umberg, thank you for joining us today, and really appreciate you taking the time. Maybe you could just say a few words and about what you're working on and.
Sure. Well, first of all, I feel guilty. The reason I feel guilty is because I've been on the phone with Dave and working on legislative stuff all day and haven't wished him a happy birthday yet. So happy birthday. And those of us that are a little age challenged like people to have birthdays. So first of all, happy birthday. Secondly, is that for all you who are on this call who have invested in Dave Min, I'm here to tell you that your investment is paying off. First of all, Dave mentioned a second ago, you're getting 2 for the price of 1 because Dave and his wife Jane are absolutely wonderful additions to the state Senate. And Dave's right, his wife he's married above his pay grade. That's right. Number 2 is that first impressions are really important. You all know that. And Dave's made a tremendous first impression in the Senate. You all know how hardworking, dedicated, smart, the integrity of this guy. But when you come to the Senate, people don't know that right off the bat. But they know it now because Dave has demonstrated that he is going to be a leader in California for a very long time to come. He's gained the respect of everyone in the Senate. I assume folks in the Assembly, too. Our bills are still in the Senate. They're not quite over in the Assembly, but they'll come to know Dave like we've come to know Dave. So you should be very, very proud that you've invested early. And there's Jane. Yeah. And that I think there's other folks that are echoing my comments. That's wonderful, Dave. You've got a chorus here. So in any event, I'm very happy, and I want to thank you. I want to thank all of you who are here tonight to both celebrate Dave's birthday and also to send Dave for sending Dave to the Senate, where he's been just a wonderful leader. One of the things he's worked on very, very hard is the Veterans Cemetery, which is near and dear to many of our hearts here. So thank you, Dave, for that. Thank you for your initiative. I've seen Dave's bills, whether it's with respect to gun safety, gun control, gun issues, whether it's respect to climate change, getting the economy back on its feet, making sure that we're staying safe and healthy during the COVID crisis. Dave has just been a leader in all those areas. So thank you, Dave. Thank you, Jane.
You, Tom. Thanks, Senator Umberg.
Thank you, Senator. Appreciate it. And would love to hear what you're working on. What do you see as the top priorities for Orange County these days? And what are your key bills that you want to get across the finish line this year?
So a couple things. One is, I think it's a priority for everybody, is getting us healthy and making sure that we vaccinate folks in an equitable manner. I represent Santa Ana and Anaheim, which are the epicenters of the COVID crisis here in Orange County. So my top priority is making sure that we get people healthy, and in particular in some of the areas that are most heavily impacted by the crisis. Disneyland impacts all of us, whether it's my district or your district, Dave. The fact that Disneyland is not open, and I see that things are going to change here soon, that Disneyland being closed has impacted industries, ancillary businesses far and wide. So that's number one, health, and then the economy. Recently, I've been appointed chair of the Judiciary Committee, which means that we have responsibility for making sure that people have access to justice. So in terms of my priorities, it's making sure that folks that, whether it's the eviction moratorium, making sure that people have access to justice. We've got all sorts of challenges, making sure that our courts get back open again. We're going to have a absolute flood of litigation here coming up. And right now we're not quite equipped to handle that, whether it's criminal processes or civil trials. We're not ready. And so that's one of my jobs, to get ready. And it's also one of my jobs to make sure that people have access. And I think we're going to see a new era in terms of the courts. concerning remote access. Other areas that I'm working on privacy. Those of you that have provided your DNA, whether it's through COVID testing or some, for example, Ancestry.com or 23andMe, making sure that you know what you're signing up for and that your DNA is kept private. That's one of the things that we're working on. It's going to come to committee next week, and making sure that our electoral process remains accessible. That's another thing that I'm working on. I formerly chaired elections, and as states around the country are trying to constrict and restrict and contract the franchise, here in California, we had an excellent election in November. I think we're going to have another excellent election next week. We had an excellent election in November where we had the highest turnout since Harry Truman was president, and one of my staff members asked me if I voted in that election. Just to resolve any doubt, I did not vote in that election. And making sure that we have access to everyone to be able to vote from home safely. Those are some of the things that I am working on, Dave. Thank you.
I appreciate that. And just, I think you all know Senator Umberg, but in case you don't, he represents Senate District 34, just to the west of me. So he's a resident of Santa Ana. That district includes Fountain Valley, Garden Grove, Westminster, parts of Long Beach, if I remember correctly.
Sure. Yeah.
It's these Senate districts are all massive, as you know, but he's got that western part of Orange County and then a little bit of Los Angeles County as well. Tom was elected in a very close election in 2018. He's going to need all our help for his upcoming election in 2022. Hopefully, the redistricting will be good for you. But
we hope so. We hope so. That's right. That's right.
Yeah.
That's right. Yeah. I'm trying not to be covetous of Irvine, Dave. So
there you go. It's a great community, and we've got some great leadership here too. But thank you so much, Tom. Really appreciate you spending a few minutes. Are there any questions from the audience? If you have any pressing questions for Senator Umberg, if you just want to grill him, that might be a good opportunity.
I'll be happy to respond. If you've got a hard question, Dave's ready to respond. Any softballs, that's my thing.
I'll say we've been so grateful for all of your guidance as Dave is starting out, and our children all know your name well, know your voice well, and we were driving together, and the two of you were talking.
Yeah.
And Tom said, "Okay, let me have Jane also hear this. The most important thing is," and then the phone cut out. And so the kids went forward laughing.
Well, Jane, you tell. This is the most important advice I think I've provided. And Jane, you go ahead and tell the group what that advice is. I know you're.
The most important thing that you could ever know is, and then he just cut off. A dramatic pause, and then we lost him. And then we got him a few hours later, and what was his advice?
Regained. I think it's staying connected to your family, making sure that you get back home.
That's right. Yeah.
So other than when I got COVID that first 3 weeks.
Well, yeah.
Tried to follow his advice.
That's right. That was a rough spat. That was rough.
Yeah.
rough.
And I just want to say, Senator Umberg has been around a bit. He was in the assembly earlier on in his career, and he certainly knows town and also Orange County. And so I've been grateful to his mentorship. It's hard. I'll say, and I'll talk a bit more about this later, but it is hard to get to know the way things work when it's all on Zoom, as you can imagine. And Tom has been a great resource and mentor, and grateful for that help in just navigating, among other things, the personal relationships up here, which is so important. But, we have one or two questions here. How drastic will redistricting affect the Senate districts in Orange County and elsewhere?
Well, we hope not much, to tell you the truth. We don't know. As I think you know, that historically legislators drew their own districts. And since I've been around so long, way back in the day, we literally went in a room and drew, or at least spent time with someone who was drawing our own districts. We don't have that now in California. We have an independent commission, which I think actually is a much, much better practice. It's an independent commission is made up of 5 Democrats, 5 Republicans, and 5 declined to state party members. And they are really insulated from elected officials in terms of how they do their job. I think that if I were to speculate, I think there will be some change. I think the population has migrated to the east, so I think districts will kind of move geographically to the east. But we're going to have 40 Senate districts no matter what. The big issue on redistricting is how many congressional districts we're going to have. And I think we're going to lose one. Some people think we're going to lose two. And that will cause some real challenges because that means that some folks won't have the seats that they now hold, and may mean that incumbents are Democrats running against other Democrats. It could get a little awkward. But we won't know for a while. The census was delayed. Thank you, President Trump, for trying to screw up the census and delaying things. But we're not going to know for a while. We moved the primary. In fact, it was my bill to move the primary from March to June because of a number of reasons. But number one was because the census is going to be late this year. The census is antecedent to any redistricting effort.
Yeah. Well, that's later. Okay. I've got a son back behind you all that is trying to grab cupcakes before it's time. Thank you, Senator Umberg. I really appreciate it. And I just wanted to, again, thank you for all you're doing on behalf of Orange County and for me personally. Our next speaker is the newly elected mayor of Irvine, Farah Khan. Thank you again, Mayor Khan, for joining us. As I mentioned earlier, Mayor Khan broke history again by becoming the first Muslim American mayor of a major city, or maybe female Muslim American mayor of a major city. She, along with the new Democratic majority, is engaging in a lot of really important work in Irvine, and we've already had a number of conversations about what we can do together on matters involving infrastructure, housing, transit, and so many other things. And thank you, Mayor Khan Farah, for joining us today. Really appreciate, first of all, just what you're doing in the Irvine City Council and for the city, but also for being my friend and joining me today on my birthday.
Absolutely, Dave. So excited to have you in the Senate. And again, happy birthday. You're a little younger than I am. So, we can sing that off-sync tune to you. Usually I get very nervous around that time, but it's just really an exciting time right now. A lot of work to be done. Just to share a little bit about what's going on in the city, we're really, really putting ourselves on the map because in Irvine, we're leading the way when it comes to anything that's happening in Orange County, taking care of not only our residents, but our businesses and our workers. I don't know if you guys have been following, but we were one of the first cities to pass our HEROES Act ordinance, taking care of our grocery workers, making sure that they had hazard pay. And, we heard all the threats that we could hear from the Grocers Association, but we held on. And as you guys know, their lawsuit went nowhere in Long Beach. So now we've got more cities in Orange County that are taking the stance, and it's very exciting to see us work together and make things happen. But other than that, when it comes to our residents, we've got $17.7 million in rent relief coming out on March 8th, I believe. And I have to thank everyone at the state legislation and as well as our federal for providing those funds that were able to come directly into our city. We couldn't have done it without your help. Not only that, but then $5 million for our small businesses. And, for us, during this pandemic, we were able to get really innovative by converting all our permitting programs online. So 100% is done online. You don't even have to walk into City Hall. And it's a very smooth process. So very excited about that. And of course, initiating the COVID-19 task force and the business reopening task force, which led to our Irvine Cares initiative, which is really bringing the community together. And at the same time, with our partnerships in the COVID-19 task force, we've been able to, as of today, vaccinate 700 of our most vulnerable seniors. Those are people that were not able to log on to the Athena app or get vaccinated through any other measures. They had transportation issues, they had internet or technology issues. We made sure our city staff were there to walk them through the process, register them, provide trips, vans to bring them to this Lakeview Senior Center and take them back, and really make it an effort where everyone felt like they were being taken care of. And I have to thank Hogan Memorial Care for partnering with us because we couldn't have done it without them. And like you said, we've got a transportation shuttle program that we're piloting. We've got infrastructure. So Dave, thank you so much for all your support in not only meeting with me but with our city staff in getting us to where we need to be. So a lot of good stuff happening, and I'm looking forward to working with you and everyone else to get the ball rolling.
And I should mention, I mentioned this to Mayor Khan, but just for the rest of you, we were given 3 top choices for budget requests. And one of my 3 choices was the Irvine extension. I guess it was the overpass bike trail over I-5 and the extension up to Barranca and beyond, so that we can have a full connected bike and walk trail from the Great Park all the way down to the coast. And I think that will add a lot to recreation, and maybe some people will take that for transit, but that's going to be another great feature for Irvine going forward. I'll talk about all my bill and budget priorities later, but we look forward to closely partnering with Irvine as well as the rest of our cities. And so, of course, we've been in close communication with Orange, Lake Forest, Costa Mesa, Huntington Beach, Newport Beach, Laguna Woods. But obviously, me being in Irvine being the biggest city in our district, we are mindful of the infrastructure concerns there.
Thank you for all your help.
Of course, and I don't know if anyone had any questions for Mayor Khan. I guess one question I just had for you is, what do you see as the major challenges for the city of Irvine over the next few years?
It's really going to be about getting out of this pandemic, making sure everyone is vaccinated. Economic recovery is going to be huge. And really, for me, the goal is that when we talk about economic recovery, we don't forget about those that are the most vulnerable in our city. So again, having the relief programs in place, making sure that when we talk about reopening and getting back to business as usual, that means business as usual for everyone across the board. And that's going to be very, very important. Our city's a bit lucky because we have been doing quite well with our reserves and taking care of ourselves financially. So we've had no layoffs for our employees, and we hope to continue that way. But at the same time, there's a lot of opportunities out there. So, taking care of community is going to be job one, getting us back onto economic recovery, and then all the other opportunities we have, we'll be working on as well.
Looks like Rima Nashashibi has raised her hand. Rima, did you have a question for Mayor Khan?
Yes. It's such a pleasure to see you both here, and happy birthday, Dave. I have a question for Farah, and since March is Women's History Month, what are your plans? What are your activities? Any resolutions coming up? What's going on?
Oh my gosh, yes. So in the city of Irvine, we are going to be presenting CEDAW, which is the Convention on the Elimination of All Forms of Discrimination Against Women. And I believe we're going to be the first city in Orange County to pass this. But if we do, it's so exciting because we are going to be setting the bar and making sure there's equity across the board for all women and girls. And I'm really, really excited about it. Thank you, Rima. And we were one of the first cities to pass, what was it? The human trafficking, was it? No, the child marriage resolution as well. And so anything we can do to kind of up that bar when it comes to cities in Orange County, do the right thing, we're going to do it.
Yeah, I'm glad you were the first city to pass that resolution. We're now 7 cities down and 17 pending. Thank you so much, and hopefully we'll end child marriage in California with Dave's help, right?
Of course, Rima, and we've been waiting to chat with you about sort of how that legislation will look. But as you know, I campaigned on the idea of ending human trafficking and some of the abuses that we talked about.
Thank you both.
Thank you. So Farah, I guess any last words of wisdom or guidance for us about what Irvine's about or what you're about these days? What are you doing to keep yourself busy during COVID?
Oh gosh, I don't think I need to add any more to my plate right now. There's plenty to keep me busy. But it's just having a positive outlook is so important. I think we've all been through so much this year, and for myself, we're small business owners, and we've heard a lot. But at the same time, I think taking care of one another, making sure that we're being kind and respectful is going to be very important, especially for our community. When it comes to getting us back to where we need to be. I'm hopeful. That's what I am. I'm very, very hopeful that we're going to come out of this pandemic and take care of our community and do what's right for our city.
Thank you, Mayor Khan. Really appreciate you, and thanks for joining us today. It's been
Thank you.
So I think we're waiting on Senator Newman, our third and final speaker. We're all special guests here, but thank you. And I thought while we're waiting for Senator Newman to join us, I'd just give a quick update on sort of some of the things we're working on. First of all, in response to Rima's question, there have been a number of resolutions on the Senate floor related to Women's History Month. We also just have chosen our Woman of the Year for Senate District 37, and we felt like and of course there are many people on this Zoom that are well deserving of this particular honor. But I think this year we felt like, given what was going on with COVID, we wanted to honor our frontline workers. So we chose a woman named Joy Ann Fumera, who is a registered nurse who lives in our district, who is on the night shift, and who has just been tireless in her work for COVID patients. So she's on the COVID shift. We first saw her in a small news story. She was mentioned as one of a number of people. And as we learned more about nursing, we learned that the night shift folks typically are overlooked when it comes to the field of nursing. And yet they're the ones that often are facing the toughest situations. It's the least staffing. And these days, it's just very, very tough. She is born in the Philippines, immigrated to California at a young age, someone who has just been amazing in her work on COVID, and we just felt like it was appropriate to honor her. So she was apparently very excited, and I did not expect this award at all, but in a lot of ways, obviously, that award to her was symbolic because we wanted to honor our nurses, our healthcare workers, all of those people that have been treating us. And I'll tell you, having been in the hospital for a few days myself with COVID, that care, that comfort, that just reassurance that things are going to be all right is so important. And then when you hear some of the stories about those who are actually do pass and how these nurses have to deal with them, it's just amazing. And so we were very excited to present that to her. As far as some of the other things we're working on, first of all, I just want to mention, we have Ash Alvandi, who all of you know as my former campaign manager, who is now my current district director. And we also have on this call Matt Kern for my district office. Let me see if there's others. But we have just an amazing district office that is doing such great work for Orange County and SD 37. And I just want to give them a huge shout out. Hopefully you have not needed help from them, but if you do need help with an EDD, whether because your small business is struggling, whether because you're facing any number of issues that might benefit from the state government helping you, our district office has been so amazing in its advocacy for people in this district. And I think at this point, we have helped over 400 people who are constituents just with EDD alone. And as you know, EDD is a huge issue. That's an amazing number, given that we only have 6 people in this office, and that we've only actually had a district office for about just over 2 months, and that they're doing this all by Zoom and remotely. Ash has created an incredible office culture. They all like each other. They even kind of like me a little bit. It's an amazing vibe, and I just cannot stress enough what great work Ash. Kelly Jones, who came to us from Katie Porter's office, is also in our district office. We have Matthew Kern, we have Patricia Macias, we have Charles Kim, and we have Jamie Black, all on our district office, and they're really just doing a bang-up job. And part of that has been getting me out into the community as much as possible in the era of Zoom. So I can't even count how many meetings I've had, but we've been meeting with PTAs HOAs, small businesses, all of the city councils, a lot of the school boards, a lot of the Board of Ed and Board of Soups members, and just trying to understand sort of what people's priorities are, getting a sense of what people want in this district, and trying to put a face to the name so that people feel comfortable in reaching out to us. And so our conversations with Larry and Farah and the city of Irvine are not confined to Irvine. We really have been getting out there in every part of our district, and that's really thanks to the bang up job that Ash and our district office have been doing. At the state level, we've also been keeping very, very busy. So as we have just finalized our bill package about a week ago. And so you may have seen some of the news coverage about our most prominent bill, which is a bill that would end gun shows in the state of California. And so that bill has gotten a little bit of notoriety, but I think this is an important issue for a number of reasons. And, it has been controversial. We would be the first state in this country to end gun shows. But I just remember I guess it was about a year and a half ago, and we were on the campaign trail. And you may remember that we had the El Paso shootings, I think on a Friday night. And then the next day, we had to talk to our kids about that because that had the shootings in Dayton. And my wife has cousins who attended the University of Dayton. We had to check in with them just to make sure they and theirs were all okay. That morning we did a 5 or 10K at the county fairgrounds. And I just remember as we were finishing up, and I had 3 kids with me. I had 2 kids. Jane had 1 a little bit behind us. Just seeing all the signs for the upcoming gun show the next weekend. Free tickets were being offered. And just thinking, this is not appropriate for a family-friendly venue. This is not appropriate for a taxpayer-funded venue. We have enough guns in Orange County. We have enough guns in California. And we all know the close linkage between guns and gun violence. And the last thing I think we need is for taxpayer-funded venues to be distributing more guns in our communities, particularly when you research what happens at the gun shows, which is that a lot of unlicensed guns get sold there. They all will claim to you it doesn't happen, but these are like flea markets. And a lot of times what happens is people will negotiate side transactions. A lot of times the sellers themselves, who are not supposed to do this, will sell unlicensed guns. And gun shows also before COVID-19 were a hotspot for the sale of what's called ghost gun kits, which is when they sell parts of guns with instructions on how to manufacture them and assemble them. So they're not technically selling a gun. It's not subject to gun registration laws, and these don't have serial numbers on them. Now, you're supposed to, once you assemble it, report it to the Bureau of Firearms, but you can guess how many people actually do that. So it's become a major concern for law enforcement as well. So we felt like that was important. Among other bills we've had, I will say that Jane, my wife's work on domestic violence has informed 2 very, very important bills we're doing, which have not really, they're not high profile, but I think they're really important. One would add something called reproductive coercion to the definition of domestic violence. A lot of people think that domestic violence is simply, a one-off, a husband beating their wife. But those who study domestic violence or advocates for domestic violence know that it's much more complex than that. It's typically a relationship that is wrapped up in a cycle of abuse and control. And one of the ways in which abusers control survivors is through reproductive coercion, forcing someone to have a child when they don't want to, forcing someone to have an abortion when they don't want to, just exercising control over their bodily autonomy. And that is not right now recognized as domestic violence. So that particular set of actions wouldn't qualify for a temporary restraining order or anything like that. So we thought that was important. Another thing that we're doing around domestic violence is a concept of the coercive debt, which is a lot of times a survivor will be forced to take on credit card debt, sign a home loan or co-sign an auto loan, and they end up with ruined credit, owe a lot of money, and it prevents people from leaving relationships because they don't have anywhere to go. They have no resources and no credit. So that one of the things we did was to say that if you can show that you are a survivor of domestic violence and that the debt you incurred was due to the coercion of your abusive partner, that debt is not collectible against you. It's collectible only against the abuser. Similarly and relatedly, our bill would say that credit reporting bureaus could not report that debt, which has a really deleterious effect on people's credit scores. These are a number of bills we're doing. We got bills on environment, we've got bills on infrastructure, good governance, and a whole bunch of other things, but I can see people yawning, so I don't want to bore y'all. I just got a text from my friend Josh Newman saying he doesn't have the link. So Ash, can you send Josh Newman the link right now to our Zoom? Perfect. And then let me think, what else are we doing in Sacramento right now? We are, you may have seen that, I guess I missed the lead here. Obviously what you guys care about is not good governance, but COVID, school reopening, small business relief, EDD, all that. So we've been busy on that front too. You may have seen some of what we've been up to. I was able to be part of the team that brought back $2.1 billion in a bill called SB 87 for a new small business relief program. This will be in the form of $25,000 to $45,000 grants for qualifying small businesses across the state. We expect 100% take up. We were fortunate in this state to have, essentially we looked under the couch cushions and we found about $10 billion more dollars than we thought we would have. And that has allowed us to do a lot more with school reopenings, with a whole bunch of other stuff. And it's one of the things I should note about this economy is that it's been so uneven. And even as we see that workers, are struggling, that a lot of tenants are struggling, we've also seen that those who are, able to work from home, those who are able to have robust stock market portfolios, a lot of people in the top end of the bracket are doing very, very well right now in this economy, and that has led to higher than expected tax flows. But that being said, we're mindful of the struggles that most people are still facing. And so one priority that's important to a lot of folks has been small business. Another has been tenant and small landlord relief. There was a big package that the Senate was able to pass around that. Another small business priority was making sure that PPP loans were not treated as giveaways to people, that they were deductible for California state tax purposes. So we've done a whole bunch in the area of those who are struggling because of COVID. Another thing we've done is related to school reopenings, and we've had a lot of back and forth around that, and maybe I'll just briefly just touch on that, because I'm sure there's some questions there. But as you may recall, Governor Newsom back in January issued a plan to reopen schools across the state. The media reports around this were not entirely accurate. The holdup was not around vaccines for teachers, although that was one concern by a lot of teachers and school administrators and school employees. However, what was more concerning was the fact that a few things. One, the math didn't add up. So there were about, if you remember that particular proposal, it was proposing $450 to $750 per person. Under that program, you would have to get tested through the state testing agency, and that, I believe, costs $150 per test. You had to get tested once a week. There were a whole bunch of different issues like that around school reopening.
Right.
Here we have Josh Newman, by the way, who can talk more about this better than I, but we were able to sort of have a back and forth that I think satisfy a lot of school districts, teachers, parents, and we had some intense discussions around this. And I'll just say that I think the guiding principle of the bill that was just passed out unanimously out of the state Senate that should be signed into law very soon, if not already, is making sure that we were encouraging reopening while maintaining local flexibility, which is so important because if you think about how big this state is, what's true of your school district is probably not true of a lot of school districts around this state. And so we're seeing just a lot of disparities, and it was really important to be able to support school districts that wanted to open while not overly penalizing those that didn't feel like they were ready to do that, trying to give flexibility and discretion to those. And here in Orange County, one thing that was very important was making sure that we had some measure of safe harbor for school districts that had already reopened. a lot of school districts were concerned that they might have to go backwards here. And so there's an important provision in this bill that would do no harm, and those school districts that have already reopened would be allowed to carry on their current practices as long as they do not have COVID spread. But with that, I have the honor of introducing my fellow fresh person in the state Senate, who I guess is not a fresh person because he's been there before. The guy behind me, who I was remarking, you say the Pledge of Allegiance very fast and loudly. I appreciate that, moving things along here. But Senator Josh Newman, you all know him and love him, just to the north of us. And Josh, thank you for joining me today and us.
All right. Well, so I came in. It's a birthday party, as I understood. I just walked into what seemed to be a very serious discussion about reopening. So Dave's a serious guy. This is a serious birthday for him. So nice. I think I know most of the folks on this call. So nice to see all of my neighbors to the south. Dennis, Kim Anderson, Felicity. Nice to see everyone. So happy birthday to Dave. I have no idea what I missed. I clearly missed the fun stuff. Larry Agron, it's nice to see you. And so as Dave mentioned, I have the pleasure of sitting next to Dave. And you're right, Dave. I'm not only a freshman, but I'm the freshman who failed the first time, right? I failed out, and now I'm back, right? So I'm doing freshman year over again. But I sit next to Dave, and I'm glad to do that, not only because we both had COVID, so I'm less likely to get COVID from Dave than from somebody else, but because he's really smart. And so I'm pretty sure if we have a test on the Senate floor, I'm going to cheat off Dave's paper. You've obviously, most of you voted for him, and those of you who didn't probably won't admit it at this point. But Dave is a wonderful addition to the state Senate. We serve on a bunch of committees together to include, I think, business professions, economic development. Dave, is that right? And that was the most boring hearing I think I've ever been to in my entire day. The Sunset Review hearing for the Department of Veterinary Medicine. And it went on and on. There's a lot to talk about, apparently.
Who let the dogs out?
Oh, yeah, exactly.
3 hours on veterinary boards. It was great.
Yeah, who knew? Like this state regulates everything down to the dog biscuit. It's really impressive. Dave's obviously giving you a good update. That's what goes on in your district is none of my business. But I'm not only do I serve with Dave, but I'm the chair of the Senate Special Committee on Pandemic Emergency Response, and so I get to participate. I lead a working group every week to talk about issues like school reopening, like vaccine distribution, and like today's current topic, the reopening of amusement parks. So please, some framework where you can reopen Disneyland, which is not only important if you love Disneyland, but it's actually important because it's such an important anchor in our local economy. And so the folks who work in and around Disneyland, particularly members of Unite Here 11, the hotel and restaurant workers, have been absolutely devastated. Up to 75% of those workers have been out of work at any given time. And so we can all be very hopeful that as we bring the case numbers down for the coronavirus, that we can start to reopen that part of our economy. And as Dave probably talked a little bit about, we're actually finally making some progress on vaccine distribution. And so I am not an optimist. I think you learn certain things in politics. Some people are truly optimistic. I think if anything, I'm an idealist. And so if you're ever on a plane with me and the captain comes on and says, we've got engine trouble, do not look to me for reassurance. I'm not that guy. And we've all been living through the pandemic, but we really are finally at a point, God willing, right, that I think in 2 to 3 months, we'll get to see something that's a little bit more like normal, with the only caveat that we have to be very careful and concerned about new strains of the virus, and that's why vaccines and prevention is so important, so we can prevent the mutations and that'll make it less likely that something will arise that's vaccine resistant and put us back where we were. So, Frank Sadeo, you're in the very bottom of my screen. I don't know if you're in D.C. or in beautiful southern Orange County, but it's nice to see you. So, happy birthday to Dave. And if I'm lucky, I won't get recalled before Dave's next birthday, and we can do this again. But to everybody here, thanks for supporting Dave. Most of you were so supportive to me during my times of trial and tribulation. And so grateful to have another member of the Orange County delegation, but particularly somebody as smart and principled and as sort of responsive as your Senator David Min.
You got serious too when you were talking about COVID. It's hard to be light about that, right, Josh? But yes, and we are the new COVID caucus from Orange County in our little wing here. But thank you, Josh. I appreciate it. You want to take a question or two? Does anyone have a question for Senator Newman?
Sure.
I'll do it.
Yeah, Lyle, go ahead.
Why not?
But it's a two-parter. First of all, for the old timers, that I do James Lee Witt, you may remember, was the head of FEMA for Clinton Gore. He's a dear friend of mine. I'm the national advisor for our company, AG Witt, and for Dave and Josh, and then of course Tom Umberg was in the Clinton administration with James Lee Witt, known for 30 years. My life is very Clinton Gore. I would love to sometimes. We're doing things all across the country to get Josh and Dave together with James Lee and our 25-person team. We're there to help. We're helping in Texas. As you know, James Lee is a rock star in this state from everything that happened during the Clinton administration. So I'd love to set that up with them. And then secondly, for Dave and Josh and Tom and everybody on this call, I'm very proud to announce something that would be beneficial to everybody, and Mayor Khan, and for everyone who wants to get your message out. For the old timers, you may remember the British Michael Jackson radio show. That's my man. We've been together 35 years, and I produced that. And some of you were on that show. Michael's 85 and retired. A dear friend of mine bought. We're going on the air in 4 weeks. KBLA 1580. I'll put this in the thing. And Dave and Josh and Tom, I definitely want to have you on. It's 50,000 watts. We'll probably have Vice President Harris on. It's there's a lot of people on there. And anchoring at this station is unapologetically progressive, and anchoring it are the 3 founders of Black Lives Matter: Alicia Garza, Patrice Collins, and Opal Tometi. So I would love to have Dave and Jane on in studio, all of you, because anything that you want to get out, we can give you, several more million people to get it out. And as you all know,
I'd be glad to do that. I've been told that I have a face for radio. I've heard all so, but I'll tell you what, like the opportunity to go on the radio and just counterbalance a little bit of what I got from John and Ken over the last couple of years. Count me in. Right? Count me
I know well. And this is real radio. I know this is real radio with millions of people listening.
But it must be because you have that fancy placard, right? It has to be. It looks like a big time station.
Oh, well, you know what? We just met. We're putting the whole thing together now. My stuff is over there. I didn't want to get up to get the real thing, but it is. Most of the station is African American, Latino. We're going to do mixed couples of everything. So it will get major news across the country. And as you guys all know, this ain't Idaho. It's Los Angeles. We're the largest radio market in the world outside of your birthplace, Josh, New York. And so you're all welcome, and that goes for everyone on here. But I'll be in touch with Dave and Josh and Tom, who was on our own show back at ABC that I produced for 30 years. And you guys come on and just know, I just want to be able to give that additional microphone to the extraordinary work you're all doing.
I have a question. If it's possible, for both of you, what are we going to do, or what are we doing regarding the hate crimes against the Asian Pacific Islander communities?
Josh, you want to take that first, or should I?
That would be some version of mansplaining, right? I believe it's qualified. Yeah.
So the API Legislative Caucus has been active on this before my time in the Senate, dating back to last year. Obviously, for those who have not been following, for Asian Americans and those who are concerned about the rise of hate, it's a very concerning time. We've seen a real sustained surge in hate crimes of all sorts against Asian Americans. I think 1 in 3 Asian Americans has reported some kind of incident since COVID started. And a lot of folks are scared to go out in the street, scared to go out in public, particularly with a lot of the recent high-profile attacks against women and seniors. Orange County obviously has not been immune to this. So in addition to the resolutions, and so I've introduced a resolution that will come up on the floor, I think in a week or so, condemning hate crimes on behalf of the state Senate and calling for action. There are a number of substantive bills, so I'm a co-author on a bill that would require hate crimes training at our police departments so that they're trained in what to do when encountering any kind of bias-based act that might be a crime. Because right now, one of the complaints you hear from victims is they don't get any kind of sympathetic response from first responders out there. Another thing that we're probably that I have proposed, along with Senator Umberg, is the creation of an intelligence unit that is going to be focused in the California Department of Justice, focused particularly on hate crimes and terrorism. It's a concerning trend we're seeing across this country right now. And so, some of you may remember Blaze Bernstein, who was murdered by an anti-LGBT white nationalist who is a member of a couple different far-right groups. We have this happening in California, unfortunately, and I think it's important that symbolically we all stand up. And as I've said a few times, and you may have seen that, I did stand with the C family in Ladera Ranch. This was a family that had been harassed for about 4 or 5 months with teenagers just playing ding dong ditch at their door at all hours of the night and calling them racist slurs, just like ruining their lives. There was a big rally in support of them. We've had a lot of incidents, and so I think it's important we all stand up and vocalize this, because I'll tell you, a lot of Asian Americans, and this is true of other marginalized groups, don't feel like they have community support. They feel marginalized. They feel excluded. They don't feel welcome here. And so I think that act, even if it seems symbolic, is important. I also think it's important that we take concrete action beyond that as well. And so we're trying to do what we can. But if you have ideas, Rima, or anything else for legislation, one of the cool things about this job, as I'm learning, is we can propose whatever we want. And if it's a good idea and we can convince our colleagues, we can pass it and make it law. Josh?
What can I add to that? Well put. So one thing I would add to that, in the budget, last year there was a fairly substantial commitment for security for groups, to include religious groups, and I think there will be additional money this year to provide for those kinds of security services and for training. But we forget sometimes. I mean, we're a progressive state, but it's still big. Small percentage of Californians can cause a lot of trouble, and we're not immune to kind of a national psychosis, if you will. So we have to be vigilant, as Dave said, and we have to be empathetic to those groups who are the victims and the objects of this kind of treatment.
Thank you, Josh, and thank you all for being allies. I think it's just really important, and I think the main thing is, if in a vacuum, it can seem like those who are full of hate and violence are the dominant force in our society, but I believe we way outnumber them, and so if we start standing up and voicing our views, we'll drown them out, and they are the ones that need to be marginalized, and I think that's just so important.
Let me add, as a kind of a corollary, Tom Umberg, I guess he was here, but he's gone. Tom introduced one of the first bills we voted on in the elections and Constitutional Amendments Committee that we voted on the floor, was SB 29, to extend mail-in voting through this year because of the pandemic, to get to next year when it will be institutionalized. And during the hearing, you take testimony and then you take public comment, and there were probably 50 calls from people objecting to extending mail-in voting and talking about all the reasons why dead people are voting, illegal aliens are voting. They were all from Orange County, right? So, it reminds us where we're coming from and what we're still up against. And so, really important for folks like us to keep pushing the ball forward.
And Farah Khan just put in the comments. Farah, if you want to just unmute yourself and say this, if you want to give an update on what Irvine's doing.
Just real quick, we were discussing this as well at the local level, and one of the things that we came up with was to make sure that, we had an opportunity to make it easier for people to report hate incidences. Of course, when there is a crime involved, we want them to contact 911, but for hate incidences, we wanted to make sure that if they didn't feel comfortable calling the police or coming into the station, that we had an online portal that was in language. So it's going to be available in 7 different languages. And therefore, it makes it easier for people to report what happened and get follow-up immediately as well.
That's excellent. First of all, gentlemen, I want to thank you in your efforts in dealing with anything with the AAPI and all of those horrible things that are going on. I went to an Orange County Human Relations meeting a couple months ago, and I was surprised to learn that the anti-Semitic incidents at that point in time were exceeding the anti-Asian. One incident in any targeted group is one too many, but just really the point being, it's just, as you said, Ross, it's more widespread here in Orange County than what we want to think about. I was wondering, Dave, or Josh too, if you would like to speculate on the recall effort.
Not of you, Josh, just to be clear.
I have a little experience with recalls. So it does appear that the recall proponents are likely to meet the threshold of 1.6 million valid signatures. And so that gets you to the next phase, right? So the next steps there are to validate those signatures and then to set an election date. So the likely election date would probably be June of next year, which is sort of asinine when you think about it, because the governor's up for re-election in 2022. But that's no coincidence, because that's exactly what the opponents are trying to do, which is to instigate a lower turnout election where they might get lucky. And so the prospects for a yes vote to Governor Newsom's recall, actually, I would argue reasonably low. Part of it is contingent on, I think, the trajectory of the pandemic, and we're in a much better spot. So, nothing. Sorry about we got a develop architect. There's a lot of problems with the pandemic, but he's certainly not deserving of recall. And so I'm optimistic that it won't work. I actually have. Let's see, Dave, why don't you take it? I got to get rid of the
It feels like you needed to pay better attention at our Veteran Board hearing earlier yesterday. For those of you who missed it, we had like a 3-hour hearing on vet boards. But I would echo what Josh says. I think this, what I hear is it will qualify, but I think the further we get away from the low point, and I think I'm hopeful that we pass the low point of COVID, which was tough for all governors. And I think that what we're sort of missing here, and what those who are pushing for the recall are missing, is that this was not just unique to California. Governors across the country were facing, a lot of tough issues, and there's no roadmap for how to deal with this. You can certainly, Monday morning quarterback and criticize some of the decisions that were made, but I think overall, I think most would say that Governor Newsom did a fine job vis-a-vis where other governors sit, where the data was, what his options were, what was presented to him. And I think that we're at a point where, knock on wood, we're accelerating out of this, the worst part of the pandemic. The indicators are all good, and you don't want to get, too ahead of ourselves here. There's a lot of work ahead of us. A lot of people are struggling. But, we have reason to think the vaccine rollout will continue to accelerate, that the economy will start to normalize, and schools are reopening. So I think the further away we get from, say, December or January, the better the governor's going to look. And I think people will see this as a political stuff.
So I hope too. There's no guidebook. They had no guidebook. What do you do in this situation?
Yeah, no, that's right. But the last recall that was successful was Gray Davis, of course. I think folks would note to you, this is a lot different. One, the state is more democratic, for good or bad. Two, Newsom's approval ratings are much higher than Davis's. But also, to the extent that Newsom was underwater, it was all driven by the pandemic. I mean, there were obviously some mistakes with the French Laundry and some of the things like that. But this was a pandemic-driven downturn in his popularity, and again, one that hit all 50 governors across the country. I don't think you'll find a single governor that emerged unscathed. And so I think he's going to end up looking pretty good by next year. Again, that depends on a lot of contingencies, as Josh mentioned, that we have to sort of see how they turn out.
And the other thing, he doesn't have a movie star running against him. So that's the third factor.
Fair enough. Yeah, he's going to have about 1,500 people running against him too if there's a recall successful. But Josh, did you have a point?
Well, I do, because I think, Mary, you know, when we talk about recalls, what we're also discussing is the exploitation of weaknesses in our constitutional system that are used, you know, by various folks as pretext to get out of special elections what they can no longer get out of legitimate elections. I have actually not one but two. This is little kid. I have two bills that are actually going to be heard fairly soon. Stop. To recall to reform the recall process. So one of those bills would actually prohibit the practice, which we're all familiar with professional signature gatherers who get paid on a per signature basis. And so my bill would prohibit that practice, because these are the folks you see in front of Stater Brothers and Albertsons who are lying their asses off to get people to sign for initiatives like this. And I think that we have to seriously consider many of these processes were developed in 1911. The world has changed a considerable bit since then, so we should make very sure that, you know, the recall, the referendum, the initiative, they're certainly valid, but they should take place in a context of legitimacy and not provide a pretext, as we've seen, for bad actors to try and get through, you know, subterfuge what they can't get through legitimate election results.
No, thank you, Josh, and I will certainly support that because I think we have seen abuses of the recall, including in your situation, obviously. So that's going to be important. But hey, it's past our official close time, so I just want to say thank you to everybody who joined us. I'm happy to stick around for a few minutes and just chat, take questions, whatever. I'm sorry we don't get together more often. Obviously, COVID makes that a little tougher, and I will say it's been super busy. And busier than I thought it'd be, and it's kind of been nonstop Zooms and calls and sessions and a lot of scintillating hearings like the one Josh was mentioning. But yeah, go ahead.
Let me give just one compliment to Dave. So I'm very lucky that I did this once before. I can only imagine that the pace of business in Sacramento is unbelievable, right? And so Dave, for you to do this and to have learned so fast during this insane pandemic, you know, kind of environment. I don't know if Dave talked about it, but the whole building is sheathed in plexiglass. We can't have more than 2 people in our office at one time. I have people who work for me that I've never seen in person. And so Dave clearly is a quick learner, because I honestly, I'm not sure that I would know what the hell is going on at this point.
You're assuming I know what the hell is going on.
You're faking it till you make it, and often that's what's most important, right? So nice job.
Thank you, Senator Newman, for joining us, and thank you all. It's really great to see so many. First of all, it's great. I see Josh all the time, which is great. But with many of you, I don't get a chance to see, and it's the first time I've seen, if it's a little pixel-bladed square in a long time, and I just want to say thank you again. You know, really just appreciate your friendship at this point, and of course your support and past support. But you know, it's fun to get the band back together, and I really do look forward to the time when we are like able to be back in person again.
So thank you, and happy birthday, Dave, and good to see you.
Yeah,
and now that the official part, the serious part is over,
yeah.
Sus has a not so serious request to the, yes you do.
Okay, yeah, I was this morning talking to some neighbors on our community, and they came to the conclusion that we will be very happy with some pickleball courts in our community.
Or in Irvine, because there aren't any, as far as I know, or just very few.
Well,
that's more for
the way it works is that the Irvine City Council puts together a plan, and then they ask for help if they can't fund it themselves from us, and we then see what we can do. So I think you may still have the Irvine mayor and a council member on. I don't know, but that would be first suggestion.
We'll get right on it, Utah. We'll get right on it.
Good.
And I will gladly sign on to Dave Min's pickleball legislation if he uses it.
Thank you. Thank you.
Pickleball will be fun. We'll do the ribbon cutting and everything. Thank you very much. And next week, which is very important to the Board of Supervisors, and one of the bills I did not mention, sorry to get a little serious again, but a bill that we actually have that I think will be important is a bill that would move all countywide elections to a top 2. That would be Board of Education, Board of Supervisors, Sheriff, and DA. And I think for me, the principle of this is to make sure that we have representative voters for these important races. Too often what happens, and we heard from so many voters who are like, when do I get to vote for Board of Supervisors? And the answer typically is never unless you vote in the primary, which, typically only 30 or 40% of voters do. And we just thought that that was important to make sure that these very important seats are elected in ways that represent the true will of the voters. And so that's going to be a priority for us. Obviously some people like the status quo, and so we know that the DA's Association in California is going to make this their top bill to oppose, but we're hoping to have some good support here. And, I think this would be helpful in places like Orange County, where oftentimes, people win 51% in a very low turnout environment, and they end up being outside the mainstream of, the values of this county, which I think are now ones of being pro-science, of embracing education, of embracing diversity and inclusion. They're people that look more like Farah and have views more like Farah and maybe less like people, that represent the old guard in Orange County. But with these county races, because it's so low turnout, I think we need to sort of change that. And so I think this would have profound impacts in Orange County and other counties across the state. Anyway, sorry to get all serious and turn it back to bills again. It is what it is. That's my birthday. I did spend some time with the kids today. We're up in SAC this week. So, just kind of hanging out. I think they must be watching TV. They're not bothering me. They've not been delighting you. Yeah, good to see everybody. And but I just really want to say thanks.
Go enjoy your evening with your beautiful family. And just know that we love you and happy birthday.
Yeah.
Everybody
Thank you guys. Appreciate you all. Much love, and we'll see you around.
everybody at the same time. Happy birthday.
Happy birthday.
Happy birthday.
Happy birthday.
Birthday.
Thank you.
So great to see you.
Take care, everyone.
Take care.